Director, President, Secretariat, and he was also Consul General of India in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I welcome sir here for your address.
Professor Vice Chancellor Jamia, Ambassador Shri, former Director ICCR, Shri Shri, Secretary to the Government of India, Professor Ahmad, Professor Nilofer Afzal, ESW, Professor Aslam Khan, and Professor Rajiv Nayan, faculty members, distinguished guests, and dear friends. Standing here at Jamia Millia Islamia, I feel deeply honored and delighted. Jamia is not just a university, it is an idea, a movement, a living symbol of India's soul. Born during our freedom struggle, Jamia has always represented what India truly stands for: unity in diversity, courage in conviction, and faith in knowledge. Its founders believed that education should not only sharpen the mind, but also soften the heart. And when we look around today, that spirit is alive in every corner of this campus. It is a privilege to speak today on a subject that resonates deeply with India's civilizational ethos, the Indian way in the 21st century. Now, you might wonder what exactly is the Indian way. Is it my way, your way, or the highway? To me, it is not just a phrase, it is an attitude, a worldview, and a guiding principle that has shaped India's journey for thousands of years and continues to guide us as we move forward in this complex century. The Indian way is not an abstract philosophy, it's a way of living every single day. Let me start with this शेर that sums up our collective way. इंसानियत के सफ़र में हिंदुस्तान रहनुमा, दिलों को जोड़ने का है ये अपना सिलसिला. Friends, the Indian way is all about balance between tradition and modernity, between ambition and humility, and between self-interest and collective good. It comes from our ancient idea of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. It reminds us that no matter how different we seem, our destinies are interconnected. In a world often divided by race, religion, or ideology, the Indian way teaches us to find unity in diversity, to build bridges, not walls, to cooperate, not compete, and to lead not by power but by example. It reminds us that true strength does not lie in domination but in harmony. Our civilization has always believed that differences are not threats to be erased but colors that enrich the tapestry of humanity. From the teachings of Buddha and Mahavira to the philosophy of the Gita, from Kabir's verses to Tagore's songs, the Indian way celebrates dialogue over division, compassion over conquest, and wisdom over wealth. That is why India could absorb so many influences over millennia: Persian, Greek, Arab, European, and yet remain distinctively Indian. We do not fear change. We transformed it into something uniquely our own. From the days of Ashoka's envoys and Buddhist monks who traveled across Asia, India has believed that dialogue, not dominance, is the true path to understanding. Our seafarers who sailed to Southeast Asia, our traders who went to the Middle East and Africa, they didn't just carry goods, they carried language, art, music, and our values. They built bridges of friendship long before visas and passports existed. In a world where polarization is rising, The Indian way reminds us that coexistence is not just possible, it is powerful. It is a message the world needs today more than ever. That humanity thrives not when one voice drowns the others, but when all voices create a symphony together. Unfortunately, in this fast-changing world, we are all struggling to find balance in our lives. What can be done to practice this in our lives? Let me share some tips with you all today. First, listen before you judge. In a world of instant opinions, hashtag revolutions and Twitter feeds, pause to understand another point of view. That is the first step towards building bridges in classrooms, in communities, and in countries. Second, respect differences, whether it is language, belief, or background. Diversity is not a challenge to overcome, but a strength to celebrate. The Indian way asks us not to fear the other, but to see ourselves in them. Third, lead with empathy. When you help a classmate, include someone who feels left out, or stand up against unfairness, you are already practicing diplomacy, which is the Indian way. Leadership begins with kindness. जो रह गुजर पे है, वही रहनुमा बना. ये हिंद का है अंदाज, सबको गले लगा. Fourth, stay rooted while being global. You, the youth of India, are growing up in a world that is far more global and digital than ever before. You will work with people from different countries, cultures, and mindsets. You are digital citizens of a connected world. Travel, explore, learn, but carry your values with you. Let your success be global, but let your hearts always remain Indian. And finally, serve something larger than yourself. Whether through community work, innovation, or public service. The Indian way teaches that real fulfillment comes not from taking more, but from giving more. In the 21st century, culture has become one of the most effective tools of international engagement. Nations today are increasingly defined not only by their economic might or military strength, but by the stories they tell, the values they represent, and the goodwill they inspire. India's culture, expressed through art, music, literature, cinema, yoga, cuisine, and festivals, continues to connect people across continents. Yoga is practiced now in more than 190 countries. Ayurveda and Indian spirituality are sought after as pathways to holistic living. Indian cinema and literature inspire audiences worldwide. Our regional writers are not only winning the Booker Prize, but our regional songs are winning Oscars too. We have all seen the world dancing to Natu Natu. These are not just cultural exports, they are bridges of understanding. Each of them carries a piece of India's pluralism, its inclusivity, and its deep respect for diversity. As the world becomes more divided and uncertain, the power of culture is being rediscovered. Because culture touches what politics cannot, the human heart. A song, a poem, a yoga session, or a shared festival sometimes achieve what years of negotiations fail to do. India's diplomatic philosophy draws strength from its civilizational depth. Long before the world diplomacy entered modern discourse, India had mastered the art of dialogue through empathy and exchange. From Emperor Ashoka's emissaries to spread messages of peace across Asia, to the spiritual and intellectual exchanges between ancient universities like Nalanda and Takshashila, India's worldview has always emphasized harmony over hierarchy. During my years in the diplomatic service, particularly as India's Consul General to Saudi Arabia, I saw how these values work in practice. India and Saudi Arabia share a rich history of trade, and people-to-people relations. You can negotiate trade, sign agreements, and strengthen partnerships. But what truly deepens the relationships between nations are not documents or deals. It is understanding. It is respect. It is the ability to listen. I often found that culture, kindness, and shared humanity achieved what official channels sometimes could not do. That too is the Indian way. Diplomacy through dialogue, influence through empathy, and friendship through shared values. As our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, often reminds us, the Indian way means balancing tradition and modernity, values and interests, autonomy and engagement. In my current role as Director General of Civil Aviation, I see the Indian way reflected in another form, in connectivity. Every new airport, every flight that connects a remote town to the rest of India is not just a transport milestone. It is a story of inclusion. It means a student can now fly to a university. A small business can reach a bigger market. And a family can connect more easily across distances. That is what the Indian way looks like in practice. Growth that carries everyone along. Development that is inclusive, sustainable, and humane. In the 21st century, when technology often races ahead of wisdom, the Indian way urges us to pause and ask, is our progress meaningful? Is it inclusive? Is it sustainable? It's about using science with conscience, power with purpose, and knowledge with humility. When we launched Mission Life, Lifestyle for Environment, it was not just about the environment. It was about returning to that simple, balanced way of living that India has always believed in. Taking from nature only what we need and giving back what we can. Friends, the Indian way is not a relic of the past. It is a roadmap for the future. It is about believing that compassion is not weakness and that culture is not outdated. Roles in administration, science, business, art, or public life, remember this, you carry with you the strength of a civilization that has taught the world how to coexist, how to adapt, and how to rise with grace. You, my friends, are the new diplomats of culture. Every time you engage with another culture, share an idea online, or collaborate on a global project, you are doing cultural diplomacy in your own way. Institutions like Jamia are uniquely placed for this. Look around you. So many languages, faiths, regions, and stories, yet one campus, one community. This diversity is not a challenge, it's our greatest strength. So, when you carry the Jamia spirit with you into the world, whether in research, media, governance, or global service, you represent India's idea of harmony through dialogue. The challenges of the 21st century, climate change, technology, inequality, conflict, cannot be solved by politics or diplomacy alone. They need human understanding, shared values and empathy, the very things culture provides. Friends, the greatest challenge of diplomacy in the 21st century is not how to win, but how to coexist. India's cultural connect is not merely a tool of foreign policy. It is the substance of our dialogue. This is the diplomacy of the heart, not just of the head. When you step out from these hallowed halls, remember that every conversation you have, every exchange you make, and every cultural curiosity you follow makes you a diplomat in this grand Indian tradition. हर रह गुजर पर शमा जलाना है मेरा काम, तेवर हवा के क्या हैं ये मैं देखता नहीं. The Indian way has always been simple yet profound, to connect, not to conquer, to harmonize, not to homogenize, to dialogue, not to divide. Let your success be global, but let your spirit remain Indian. Be modern in tools, but rooted in values. Be ambitious, but stay anchored. If each of us can live and lead with that spirit in our classrooms, offices, institutions, and communities, then India will not just rise as a power, but as a principle. That is the Indian way. That is the way forward. कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा दुश्मन दौरे ज़मा हमारा. Thank you, Jamia Millar Chania, for inviting me. Thank you for keeping India's composite culture alive and for showing that education, when rooted in values, can truly transform the world. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for such an enlightened address. Your address, you mentioned about the humanity and collective good. Friends, God created humanity, but we are divided by caste, creed. In every religion, we see that we are the subject and above is the God. But we created all the divisions, but since we are having a very rich cultural heritage of accommodation each and everyone, and the example was given of Buddha, Mahavira, and such a DGCA of the dialogues when our travelers were traveling to Middle East, Africa for the trade. They took their cultural values, traditions, and for that matter, we are now kind of nation that whole world is looking for. Whenever there is a kind of any disturbance or the conflict, world is looking India as a medium of conflict.